I'm Karen Mayfield. I'm the Executive Director of the West Chapter of CAI. And today, Alan Tannenbaum and a couple of gentlemen from Sarasota County are going to give you a lot of great information about licensing and permitting. So for the next hour, they're going to be the ones entertaining you. If you haven't already, please mute your microphone so that we don't get feedback. And if you have questions during the presentation, Alan is going to monitor the chat feature. So don't raise your hand, don't ask a question, please write your question in chat. And as always, I'm going to turn it over to Alan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Alan Tannenbaum with Tannenbaum, Scroll, Lamole, and Kleinberg in Sarasota. But we also have offices in Orlando, St. Pete, and Fort Myers for those of you who are not attending from this area because it was open to more folks. So I'm a construction lawyer, board certified by the Florida Bar, and much of my career over 4 decades has been involved in construction related issues affecting community associations. So I've been involved in condo and HOA repair work, certainly turnover claims, construction defects. I've sat with a lot of boards that have been contemplating repair activities, and I've had my share of instances where there were repair work was done that didn't turn out very well. And on many occasions where things went haywire, it really had a result from some of the licensing requirements and permitting requirements not being met. So this is a topic that's near and dear to me. And I'm gonna introduce the topic after I talk about the panel. We have with us Guy McCauley, who's the Deputy Building Official for Sarasota County, and Robert Lepley, who's the Investigation Supervisor, Licensing and Enforcement for Sarasota County. And I'm going to have these gentlemen describe generally how their department's set up and how permitting and licensing is approached. I will say as a disclaimer for them that they're going to tell you how it's done in Sarasota County, which has jurisdiction over unincorporated Sarasota County. You will find substantial variations between locales as to how building departments handle these particular issues. So don't walk away, if you're not in Sarasota County today, don't walk away with a belief that you know exactly where all the lines of demarcation are, because it may be different if you're in Orlando or St. Pete or Venice or City of Sarasota. They may allow something that these gentlemen say that Sarasota County wouldn't allow, or they may require something that Sarasota County wouldn't require. So that's my disclaimer for them. And the other disclaimers, they're not here to answer very project specific issues that might be pertinent to a permit that's either on file for application now or ongoing. They're not going to take positions on those. So let me before they talk about their department, let me frame the issue. So every day in Florida community associations, condos and HOAs, there are maintenance people and board members performing work that they're not licensed to do. Most of the impetus of it is to save money. You know, there's been more than a few contractors who have moved down from up north, got on the board of directors or a building committee, and they walk around the property and they're doing jobs and saying, you know, I'm not charging the association anything, I'm doing it as a volunteer. Seen those groups get in trouble. I've certainly seen contractors come out to properties and work outside the scope of what they're licensed to do. I've seen work that probably requires a engineering expertise, a set of plans to be filed and reviewed by the planning department or building department that where those plans are not appropriately filed. All kinds of excitement in condos with interior unit renovations, with boards allowing contractors in at the behest of condominium owners to do all kinds of things within units that I've seen at times jeopardize even the structural integrity of the building, because they're moving structural features around, certainly affecting mechanical, electrical components and so forth. So we do have a problem that all of us are faced with, and hopefully this program will draw some boundaries that folks should be thinking about. So with that introduction, Guy, why don't you tell us about how Sarasota County's organized for purposes of permitting and licensing and so forth.
So thank you for having Bob and myself. I manage the South County office here in Sarasota County, and my main job is more of the regulatory side of licensing unlicensed contractors, unfit, unsafe structures. We inspect unsafe buildings. We handle complaints on licensed contractors. And I also, on the licensing boards that we have, I represent the county and present the cases on complaints that we get from property owners on certain contractors. And we enforce the building code as well as county ordinance for life safety. And we also have, besides state licensed contractors, we have registered local licensed contractors, more of a specialty item, but we also license anything from a general contractor, plumber, electrician, if they choose just to work in unincorporated Sarasota County. And we regulate those licenses, and we accept all the state licenses. So that's pretty much what we do.
All right, and Bob, who's retiring shortly. Bob, what's your role with the county?
I do licensing and enforcement investigations, basically both proactive and complaint driven, work without permit, unlicensed contractors, unpermitted construction, unsafe. We do the whole gamut. And with the unlicensed, we go all the way through criminal court. We'll process it to a point, turn it over to the Sheriff's Department, DVPR, and Bureau of Insurance Fraud, and end up in court testifying as an expert witness on the work that they were doing for the state attorney's office.
And I should probably mention too, prior to COVID, we've generally 2 or 3 times a year have operations with the Sheriff's Department, the DVPR, and the insurance fraud, state insurance fraud, and perform operations with unlicensed contractors. Due to COVID, obviously, we haven't had the opportunity to do that in 2020.
Let me ask you about licensing. So how would you answer the general question of why we have construction licensing in Florida? What purpose does it serve?
It's for the safety and well-being of the property owners and the citizens. A lot of the unlicensed individuals are not insured. They're not trained and have the knowledge that they need to have in particular professions. And a lot of them have criminal backgrounds that are going into people's homes and possibly putting those folks in danger.
So what trades require a state license?
All your Division I contractors, which would be a general building and residential contractor, Then you have your mechanical, your plumbers, electricians, roofers, window installers. What else?
Pool construction.
Pool construction, pool cage installers and manufacturers.
All right, well,
A whole gamut.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, those are state licenses, okay?
Right.
And you mentioned that the fact that there's also county licensing, is it a required license or an elective license? How does that work?
So a lot of the specialty licenses that aren't regulated by the state are offered by the county, and that differs from county to county. So we have a demolition specialty license, a window installer, hurricane shutter, garage door, wall erection contractors, landscaping, irrigation, structural steel, masonry, house moving, and aluminum contractors.
So let's say for window installation, if
Yeah.
if a condominium within the Sarasota County was going to do a window replacement, does the contractor's going to do that work have to both have the state license and the county license?
They would need one or the other. You're not going to really generally have both. But our local window license is limited to 3 stories. So anything above that, you would need to have a Division I contractor, a general, or a building contractor.
All right, let me go through some of these trades, and let's try to draw some lines of demarcation between what a condo or HOA can do with its own maintenance staff or handymen, and what would require a trade. So let's talk about air conditioning. So any movement or replacement of ducts, installation of air conditioning equipment, license, contractor or not?
License.
Yeah, licensed contractor, licensed mechanical contractor.
All right, and that would even include moving ducts, even if
Correct.
the mechanical equipment wasn't affected.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right. Electrical work. Give me some parameters of, and you could distinguish between maybe an interior unit alteration versus a common element, let's say of a condo. Where are the lines of demarcation for
From the state of Florida standpoint, if you disconnect 2 wires, you need to be a licensed electrician, period. So that means if you're changing fixtures, you need to be a licensed electrician. If you're changing a ceiling fan, you need to be a licensed electrician,
Unless you're the property owner.
unless you're the property owner working on your own property. It
All right,
doesn't
and-
necessarily require a permit, but it requires a license.
Okay, and let's say for common element lighting in a condo or an HOA, if a board or management is directing a maintenance person to connect 2 wires at the common element, that would not be constitute an owner doing his own work.
That would be
Right.
unlicensed contracting.
Okay, so I hope everybody's hearing that, because I know there's a lot of maintenance guys who are replacing light fixtures in common areas, certainly ceiling fans and so forth. Now, would the same pertain to work that was done in an interior unit?
Yes.
Okay, so it really for the boards of management to, when there's any work or renovation going on in the unit, consider having some criteria so you actually know what's going on, what work people are going to be doing. Maybe get some notices to the owners about where some of these lines of demarcation are. All right, plumbing. So some of the HOAs have clubhouses, they have bathrooms, they have kitchens and so forth. What work that a plumber would typically do would require a plumbing license?
If you're changing out fixtures, that would require a licensed plumber, or if you own the unit, you could do it yourself, if it didn't require a permit.
So changing out fixtures, give me an example of that.
Changing out a toilet would require to be done by a licensed contractor or the unit owner, but would not require a permit if you're not, relocating it.
Okay,
Anytime you move from here to there, you would need a permit and need a license.
Okay.
Absolutely.
hot water heaters always create great excitement. What can a maintenance person to do with a hot water heater? Can they service it?
Yes. You can service it, changing the heating element. However, if you're changing like for like, or going from a tank to a tankless, that's gonna require, again, either the unit owner or a plumber. However, if you're going from a tank to a tankless, that requires a permit, so the unit owner wouldn't be able to do it in a condo type setting, in anything multifamily.
All right, we have a question. What about replacing a smoke detector?
If you're talking a hardwired smoke detector that's 110, then it's touching 2 hot wires, then it would require a licensed contractor or the unit owner, and doesn't require a permit.
Okay, and there's a question about, and let's get this line of demarcation right, about common elements, let's say, of a condominium or a homeowner association. Is that considered a commercial installation for purposes of code compliance?
Yeah, that would be commercial.
Okay, so that stricter regulation over what might be allowed within in a unit.
Yeah, then it would, obviously the unit owner is out of the question, and like a maintenance or a board member would not be able to do that work either.
Okay. All right, let's get into some of the exterior stuff, like pouring decks, replacing sidewalk sections. Licensed contractor, not a licensed contractor.
Flat work, we do not require a permit, and some commercial would require it, but it would be more of if it was a raised area. There is a concrete license for that, goes with the masonry license. But in a commercial setting, that would require somebody licensed to do it. In a residential, single family, it would not.
All right, let me bring in the issue of permitting, because I know there's obviously substantial overlap between permitting and licensing. Generally, why do governmental entities require building permits?
Life safety, main one.
Okay. And by pulling a permit, is there information within the permit application where there's actually an agreement that building codes will be complied with, and local and state regulation and so forth?
There's an affidavit, yes.
Okay. So what work generally within the, let's say, condo HOA would require a permit, building permit? And we're talking about repair and renovation. What's the parameters?
Where we've run into, I'm going to give an example. HOA or condo association hires a painting company, to paint the exterior of the building. They start to paint, then they find areas of rot, which is going to require replacement of the exterior siding and or doing masonry repair to the sidewall of the building. At that point, that painter, more than likely 80% of the time, does not have a license to do anything structural to fix that area. inadvertently, they still go ahead and do it, and then we end up getting them and shutting down the job because they shouldn't have done that. They should have stopped when they got to that point, let them know that they've run into that problem, and then hire a licensed contractor to take over that part of the job.
So the, for an exterior painting job, without knowing that there are any underlying issues, the undertaking of a repainting would not be something that would require a permit.
Not in our county,
No,
correct?
or a license for that matter.
Okay, and nor a license. So there's no such thing as a licensed painting contractor in Florida or in the county, correct?
Well, not in Sarasota County, but there are other jurisdictions that
Have a license.
that require tile setters and painters and stucco folks to be locally licensed.
All right, so a painting contractor's out there working on a building, and let's say they discover stucco delamination. Portions of stucco, they're not bonded and so forth. What's required at that point?
Well, they would need to have an engineer do an evaluation to see if it's eating away at the rebar, and there would be some sort of a restoration going on there. And actually that gets permitted through a licensed contractor, but the engineer does the inspections on something like that, on a concrete restoration.
Okay, so what's appropriate at that juncture is the painter reports the issue, and would it really be up to the owner at that point to realize that this has gone beyond the scope of the painting work, and it's time to get other licensed individuals involved in order to evaluate the problem and take action on it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let me ask you about roofing work. Comes up a lot because this has to do with the scope of a permit. So you have a mid-rise or a high-rise condo, and on the roof, there's air conditioning condensing units, there's plumbing vents, there's obviously electrical service going to the air conditioning equipment. Maybe there's some rooftop lighting, and a condo hires a roofing contractor to spec either a re-roof or a recovering of that roof, which can't be accomplished unless the HVAC condensing units are removed and replaced. Maybe there's some additional roof drainage that needs to be added, and lighting has to be removed, electrical disconnect, and so forth. Can all that be done under a roofing permit by a licensed roofer?
Well, the re-roof permit, yes, but they would have to add the subs of the appropriate license to their permit. For instance, the mechanical, if they're going to put a new stand for the unit, that contractor would be a sub on the roofer's permit.
But it would not require a separate electrical permit, a separate mechanical permit.
No, they could go on as a sub to the roof, the licensed roofer.
Okay. Again, lesson to board members and managers. The other thing that sometimes occurs with roofing work is you discover, it could be a elevator shaft that extends above the roof. It's isolated as having some issues with it that are maybe contributing to the roof leakage that started the roofing work, and then you have work that needs to be done on the actual structure that's on a roof. Now, could that type of work be done under the roofing permit, or would that require a separate permit?
So roofers are like wood sheathing and stuff like rotted sheathing, roofers can replace. However, if it becomes a structural issue, they will need to have an engineer provide drawings to do the repair. And if the roofer is not a licensed either building or general contractor, they would have to, that work would have to be done by that contractor on a separate permit. On a, what we call a BR permit, would be a repair permit.
All right, we're getting some questions. Let me go through some of those. How do you find out if a particular home project requires a permit?
Well, you could either call the county and talk to one of our plans examiners, or myself, or somebody in Bob's group. We also have a flyer that's on the website on what some items that a list of, I don't know, it's about 10 items, right?
Like 17 items, what
that
requires a permit.
What does and doesn't require a permit. But you definitely want to find out and do your due diligence before you start the project.
All right, I have a question. This is a community association. It's a community clubhouse where they've had water damage. Ceiling needs to be repaired. Would licensing and permitting be required?
If you're talking about replacing 3 sheets of drywall or less, no, you would not. And a handyman or a maintenance personnel would be able to do that type of job. Anything over 3 sheets of drywall, we require a permit.
Now, if so any electrical work associated with that would, again, a permit would be required.
Well, if you're talking about taking down and putting back a fixture, then you would just have to have a licensed electrician take care of that part for you.
All right, the changing out a heating element in a hot water heater.
No permit.
Okay, even if that meant, aren't you disconnecting, reconnecting electrical for that?
It's like working on a toaster.
Yeah, I mean, that's what internal. That's not on the box. The disconnect, that's going to be internal to the appliance.
Okay. All right, I have a question about contracting with and paying someone who is not the contractor of record that has pulled the permit. This may go beyond what these gentlemen would talk about. Knowing who you're contracting with.
Yeah, so the property owner needs to be in contract with the licensed contractor that's going to apply for the permit. You can't be in contract with an unlicensed person and then the unlicensed person hires a licensed contractor to go get the permit for them. That would be aiding and abetting an unlicensed contractor on the licensee side and unlicensed contracting for the unlicensed contractor.
You know, one of the issues that I've seen, for instance, you have some statewide roofing companies that, you know, where there's one qualifier who qualifies the company, but they have people selling their roof jobs all over the state. And one of the requirements of construction licensing, if somebody qualifies a contracting company, that they're obliged to actually supervise the work on all the jobs that are done under their license. And you may have a roofing contractor with the qualifiers, you know, in Vero Beach, and they're selling, you know, roofing jobs in you know, Charlotte or Sarasota County. The qualifier never shows up, and what you're really dealing with are salespeople and tradespeople who have very little connection with the company that you're actually contracting with. Have you seen that issue?
Yes, and I mean, that happens a lot, and the qualifier of that with that license has to have direct knowledge of everything that's going on within his company.
That's
So really, the importance is of figuring out who's actually showing up at your project is really a key.
well, let's use, for example, Home Depot. Home Depot has one qualifier for the entire state of Florida. So all the stores that sell jobs where the guy comes out and works at your house, the guy that comes working at your house is working under Home Depot, working under that qualifier. So that qualifier qualifies the whole entire state of Florida.
But those folks that are on the roof should be direct employees of the company that pulled the permit. And they should be insured workman's comp, liability, and they have to be direct employees of the company that obtained the permit and sold the job.
All right, there's a question. Does a roofing permit allow for the replacement of skylights?
As long as the skylight was existing, if it's a remove and replace, yes. If not, it's going to be a separate permit.
They just have to have the manufacturer's specs on site for the installation to make sure it meets the current code.
Exactly.
All right, let's get into some more on the electrical side. Fire alarms and cable systems. What kind of licensing and permitting is required for those installations?
That's going to be through the fire department. Actually, it's a permit through our office, but that's regulated by the fire department, and you'd have to be licensed to do that type of work.
The other thing you said was cable.
Yes.
I don't believe cable has any licensing at all.
No, like Frontier or Comcast, that wouldn't be something that we regulate or permit.
Do you find with some of those installations that where you have firewalls that there's some indiscriminate breach of firewalls that are occurring because that's not a permit or a licensed activity?
Yeah, I've seen that when I used to do inspections in attics, that they just take a hammer and put a hole in the demising walls, and at that point, it's really going to be up to the owners to kind of regulate that and make sure that gets patched up correctly.
I've heard a lot of description of structural versus non-structural walls. So it could be in a unit, it could be in a clubhouse. If you're moving a non-structural wall, would that generally be a permitted activity?
Yeah, that's an alteration to the floor plan that would require a permit.
And 99% of your walls have electric.
Yeah.
So you got to explain where the electric went.
And again, usually that would then also require a licensed contractor to do that work.
Correct.
And let me take you through a typical clubhouse. They have a kitchen area, entrance, doors, walls, and so forth. And there are times remodeling and so forth that's done. And let's talk about a kitchen. Removal and replacement of kitchen cabinetry, generally not requiring a license or a permit?
Not in Sarasota County, as long as you're staying within the same, it's a remove and replace, you're not reconfiguring.
But associated lighting and so forth, you would have to get. So what would you get? Would you get an electrical permit, or just would the license be required?
A fixtures and devices permit. It's a over-the-counter permit. There's no plan review. it's a pretty quick permit. And the most of the contractors have online permitting privileges, and they, as fast as they can type it in and print out, it processes and they print out the permit card.
So when would you need a electrical engineer to submit a set of plans when you're doing any kind of electrical lighting alterations?
That would be more for your larger commercial projects. That's not going to be for a like a condo unit renovation. Those plans would just be by the design professional. If there's no exterior wall construction, an architect could do those types of plans.
And when generally are plans from a structural engineer required? Talking about a renovation or repair work.
Okay, so if you're going to go in and renovate, it's anything other than doing floor painting, the cabinetry, or remove and replace. If you're going in and altering the unit, to say you take out the old tray ceiling and you're going to open up the kitchen, that's going to require a permit, or reconfiguring the space.
And a structural plans to go with that?
No, that would just be actually a draftsman could do those plans, as long as there's no penetrations involved with the fire stopping and draft stop.
All right, there's a question about notice of commencement. What role does the building department have in reviewing notices of commencement, requiring notices of commencement? Is that part of the permit process?
It is not. It's just a requirement that it be filed prior to the first inspection, and it's supposed to be posted in the permit box with the permit card.
And if it's not, does the work get halted generally?
They shouldn't even be allowed to schedule an inspection if it's not filed with us.
Let me talk about
the first
yeah,
one.
go ahead.
That's just the first inspection. After that, you're good to go.
All right, let's talk about how inspections work, because I think it's a mystery to some folks about they hire a contractor, there's a building permit. Whose obligation is it to call for an inspection?
Well, if the permit is in the contractor's name, the contractor, when they are ready, their first inspection, they're ready for it, then they should call for the inspection after they're done with the work that needs to be inspected.
Well, let's say, for instance, a wall's being, there's repair work being done on a wall, maybe some structural components to it. How would an owner know when that first inspection is supposed to be called for?
As an owner builder permit, or you
No,
mean?
I'm talking about as a management company or a condo board. How do they know that their contractor's calling for the inspection at the proper time?
Well, all the inspections are listed on the permit card, and there's a little description on what that inspection is for. So if you have a little bit of knowledge about construction, and let's say it's a framing inspection, when all the framing's done that were approved on that set of plans, then that's when you would call in that inspection. And it should be per the plans that were approved.
Now, is that inspection process, is it customized for every particular job, or is it just a standard set of inspection criteria that would apply to new construction or renovation?
Well, the required inspections are in the building code, and those would be assigned to each permit based on the plan review when you've submitted for permit.
there's some confusion out there as to really what the purpose of building inspection and approval is. Is the government making any statement to the owner that, at the time that there's an issuance of a certificate of occupancy or a final permit inspection, that the job has been done according to contract, according to manufacturer specifications, and fully complies with the building code?
It would meet minimum code compliance and or the, like you just said, the manufacturer's installation instructions.
Well, I just threw you a softball question, but let me help you with the answer that I was waiting to hear.
It doesn't give you quality.
All right. So I was involved in a little case called Trianon Park versus City of Hialeah, decided in 1985. I actually argued it before the Supreme Court of Florida. And it was a condo in Hialeah where they had massive water intrusion. We proved at trial that the inspectors for the City of Hialeah Building Department missed glaring errors in the roof inspection, and a jury in Dade County, Florida, held the City of Hialeah accountable for their negligent building inspections, and it went up to the 3rd District Court of Appeal. That was affirmed, and it made it to the Florida Supreme Court. And in a 4-3 decision in that case, they said that building departments in Florida are not liable to homeowners or condo owners under a theory of negligent building inspection. That the purpose of building inspections is to serve the general public interest, and the building departments are not guarantors of quality of construction, of code compliance, or really of any other compliance, and that what you really should do is hire engineers and great consultants and to represent your interest during a project, because that's not really what the building department is there for. So why don't you gentlemen talk a little bit about the limitations of building inspection relative to how many times you actually show up on a job, things that may occur while you're not there, and kind of the limitations of what the county's role is.
Well, just for an example, you mentioned roof inspections. So we're not there to inspect the whole installation of the roof. There's what we call a roof in progress. So we only are going to inspect what is up to that point when the inspector gets there. It's puts it on the contractor, the licensed individual, to install the roof per the code after we leave. So they're only gonna show us like a portion, say a shingle in progress. We're only gonna be able to inspect however many squares they have down to inspect it per the manufacturer's installation instruction and the building code. After we leave, obviously we're not gonna see that. So it falls back on the contractor in cases for that example. And we don't inspect the quality of workmanship. That's not in the building code.
There's a question, please address coating an existing modified bitumen roof. Is it considered roof maintenance? And whether that type of work would require a permit.
What was the roof coatings?
Yes.
Roof coatings are an interesting beast. If they're doing it just to paint the roof to make it colored, doesn't require anything. If there's painting it to seal the roof, to give a warranty that it's going to extend the roof for additional time, whatever, they have to be a licensed roofer, and then it would require a permit.
In some cases.
In some cases, correct, yes. What they were doing for a while, they were taking and putting on tile roofs, putting about 40 bags of mortar mix on the roof and sealing every seam on the entire roof, and then sealing it with polyelastic paint. and then say it was gonna extend the life of the roof 15 years. And they were painters. So nobody took into account what those 40 bags of mortar mix added to the thing, and they sealed every single crack on the entire roof. So the roof did not breathe whatsoever. It actually would shorten the life of the roof.
And maybe increase the dead load on the structure.
Correct.
Exactly, because that was
Correct.
never designed for that weight that they added.
Correct.
I've seen instances in roof replacement where the owner wanted a very robust tile to replace the existing roof, and somebody forgot to check the structural calculations for the original roof decking to assure that it could handle that weight load.
Right.
So
Yeah, it could have had shingles, asphalt shingles on it, and they went to a cement tile, and that's a big difference. They have to do an analysis on the trusses at that point.
there's a question about what changes in the new Florida building code relate to re-roofing.
There's quite a few, and I couldn't even begin to tell you exactly what they are because that's not really my expertise. But there are significant changes, and they are listed on our website. And all the significant changes are listed, whether it's roofing, electric, mechanical. They're on the SC.gov website.
All right, let's do some summary, because there was some really good materials that you had sent us, and we've been talking about things that should or should not be done without a permit. So maybe to put it in a more positive light for associations and board members and managers, painting is generally okay to be performed by a non-licensed contractor. What if it's called waterproofing? Does that alter anything?
Inside of a unit, doesn't matter.
How about
On a roof.
outside?
On a roof, it would matter.
On a roof, it would matter, but inside the unit, doesn't matter.
Okay. Wallpaper and wall coverings generally not.
Don't require anything.
Right.
Floor and wall tile. But what if you're doing work on the subfloor as part of a tile installation? Does that alter anything?
If you're just repairing some rotted sheathing, that would be okay. But if you're talking replacing rafters or that would require a permit and a licensed contractor.
Okay, rugs and carpeting are pretty obviously not
Right.
not a permit required or license required. Kitchen cabinets, that's fine. But if there are air conditioning, plumbing, lighting, changes made incident to the replacement of cabinetry, again, that would all require a licensed contractor, but not necessarily permitting, or when would permitting be required?
If you're going to reconfigure. But the city of Sarasota, I can tell you, you're going to need a permit either way,
Even for cabinets.
even for cabinetry, but not in unincorporated Sarasota County.
All right, condo building, fascia and soffit repair replacement.
That now requires an inspection, so yes, that would require a permit.
And anytime you say that it requires a permit means that there's got to be a
Need a contractor.
licensed contractor involved.
Correct.
Okay. What about siding placed over existing siding?
As long as you're not removing or replacing the substrate, then you're okay. If you're talking like a hardy plank on a aluminum siding over existing, then it would not.
What about roof leak repairs?
On single family or,
Talking about a multifamily.
okay, multifamily, that's, you're gonna need to have a licensed roofer. Anything over, what is it, a square,
Anything over a square or $500.
would require a permit.
So the $500, is that a retail value?
It's the written value of the job.
Because
Whatever.
I'll get a manager to tell me, well, I sent the maintenance guy up, it didn't cost us anything, so it's less than $500.
It has to be
Your roofer.
a licensed contractor. If it's,
Okay, you
if
won't
it's
get
gonna
away
be
with that,
commercial.
manager, so the $500 limit. All right, window and door changeouts where you're just replacing the window in a multifamily building, permitted?
The glazing itself,
Yes.
then that wouldn't require a permit.
But what about if it's the frame,
Yes,
Definitely needs permit.
permit and a license?
Yes.
There was a issue about storage containers. Would that, let's say garbage enclosures and so forth, would that normally require if those were going to be replaced or repaired? Permit?
yeah, like surrounding a dumpster type,
Yes.
yeah. I
A
mean, if
masonry block for sure.
if it's fencing, then no, but if it's, yeah, masonry, yes.
All right, we haven't talked about paving. Is there any Florida license for paving?
No,
Curbs and,
no,
all right, so that's nothing the county would get involved in.
no, it's more vertical construction than that type of construction.
And site work, drainage modifications, things like that? The
No.
county- Is there any agency within the county that would be involved?
Depending on the land development side, there would be some permitting involved, and the drainage as well, but not from the building side. No.
Could be from resource protection side if the condo
Right.
units are on the beachfront.
Right.
All right, I have a question. Do you have to have a wind mitigation inspection after re-roofing? Is that anything you guys get involved in, or is that?
No, we don't.
That's an insurance question. What percentage of a deck can be replaced before having to pull a permit? I guess the only issue is, I don't know if they're talking about I guess it's let's say there was an exterior deck outside of a clubhouse or a unit.
We're talking an elevated deck, I presume.
Yeah,
Just the decking
If
itself.
they replace the decking itself, it doesn't require anything. If they do any of the stringers or the railings and that stuff, yes, it would. It would require a permit.
all right, there's a question about paver installation. Is that anything you guys get involved with?
No.
Okay, not requiring a permit. All right, you gentlemen have a kind of a concluding pearls of wisdom for community association and condo land about how to best protect themselves, permitting, licensing wise, in contracting with vendors.
Well, if you're not sure on if it requires licensure or permit, ask us. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Cheap doesn't turn out to be cheap if you don't do it the right way.
Yeah.
That's the best description I can give you.
I think one of the things that we heard today was making sure that your contractors operating within the confines of their permit and their license and their expertise. I had a project in Holmes Beach several years ago where it was a very reputable waterproofing company, who decided they hired a guy who had a contractor's license, and they announced that now they were doing structural restoration as well as waterproofing. And as good as they were at waterproofing was as bad as they were at concrete restoration, because the gentleman that they hired really had no background in it, but he had the license that allowed them to do that. So there's really nothing more important than being knowledgeable about what the permit limits are, but also making strong inquiry of the contractor as to what their expertise is at any particular job. And the other part is, it's really been hit on today, is jobs metamorphosize. So
Absolutely.
what started out as a painting job ended up being a structural repair or siding replacement. And as soon as a job metamorphosizes, like, the key is to know that you're now dealing with something different, may require different permitting, different licensing, maybe a different contractor, maybe an engineer's opinion, and to be very careful about not allowing that job to proceed now that it has actually turned into something different. And I think you gentlemen have seen that. Last couple of questions. Installing a high antenna on a 3-sided, no roof concrete garbage wall. So what involvement do you have in antenna installation? Is that a building department function generally?
Normally, no, and there is a height that's more of a zoning type deal. I think, what is it, 30
feet.
30 or 35 feet.
It could be different in every area because they could have their own rules.
Yeah.
Most of it's covered under like the telecommunication thing where they're not
Right.
restricted.
So when these condos put antennas on their high-rise roof, is there any building department function in that activity?
Not your like TV type antenna. Now there are some cell towers that get permitted through the county that, they'll put them on the top of a high rise. Those do require a permit, yes.
All right, and I think we hit all the questions. Obviously, this is a start of a conversation. I want to thank the two gentlemen from the building department. My best wishes to Bob, who's retiring. So this is his last public event.
No, I got court on Friday.
Oh, he's got court on. All right, after court on Friday.
Okay, that'll work.
Which is good. Please use guys, a great resource. And if he can't answer your question, we'll get somebody else within the department to answer. What I have always found about building officials and building departments is they are actually out to protect the public safety. They can't guarantee you're going to get a great job, but they do have an enforcement capability. They want to know about unlicensed people who are doing work out there. So be sure to report that. And for your managers out there, really, there's hopefully some good talking points that you got today about not letting your boards, have your maintenance people and maintenance and handyman. And the one thing we haven't talked about, there are very severe penalties for unlicensed contracting. And one of the talking points that any of the managers can say is, look, you're putting your maintenance person who may be an employee of our management company at risk for a criminal violation by pushing them beyond what they're allowed to do as maintenance or handymen. And that's probably the most significant talking point.
Well, you could be putting the board at risk for not having workman's comp for the type of work the guy's doing also.
That's right. And then there's insurance issues. Anytime there's unpermitted work done or unlicensed work done at your property, and you end up making an insurance claim later on, it gives the insurance company the opportunity to deny your claim based upon either unpermitted or unlicensed work. So the repercussions are very significant. So like to thank everybody today. Again, this is the beginning of a conversation. We may have a follow-up if there's enough interest in particular issues in greater depth. Hopefully we've planted some seeds and help you folks in approaching some of these issues. So I think we killed it, Karen.
Yep, I think we did. We filled another hour. Thank you so much, Bob and
All right.
Guy and Alan. I greatly appreciate y'all being here and giving us some great information. And thanks to all of you who were a part of the audience. We hope you learned a lot today. So
We'll give you more notice next time. That was on me.
yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Take care.
All righty.